Welcome to Coprolalia. This is a podcast. Welcome back to Coprolalia, a shit-talking obtuse table with a couple of crafty artsy ones. Who knows what topics will be discussed, but who cares? I'm Wrath, and I'm here with the Irreverend. I have noticed something though. I only seem to have function from the neck up. Yeah. What's that about?
So let me start by introducing where we are. We're shrunk down inside the skull of a saber-toothed tiger. Somewhere between 52 million and 10 million years ago. The readout on the little device we have is digital, and the LEDs don't work very well, so I don't know exactly what time we are in.
Certainly jungle-esque around us, with a lot of bigger bugs. I guess we're in the saber-tooth head though, so it's hard to judge size at this point.
So to explain the motor function problems that we both have, there's a little button on the machine that transports us through time and space that we have used on previous episodes.
You should know that by now.
The button said sleep mode. I believe that it puts the machine into sleep mode, but it actually put our motor function from the neck down into sleep mode. So we might not be able to move anything but our neck and mouths for the next 50 minutes.
Well, I mean, since we can't do anything else, we might as well use that time to record an episode of our bullshit podcast.
Exactly. I managed to hit record before everything went dead.
Well, I guess we might as well, besides being paralyzed from the neck down, how are you, Giles? Irreverend. The Irreverend.
I'm pretty good, but I always feel a little bit better once I've done finished an art piece. And I'll get those little boosts of serotonin or whatever it is, endorphins of
that is terrifying.
Yeah. From like when the likes roll in, or on Instagram when the
yeah.
the hearts roll in.
Yeah, baby. Jesus.
Yeah,
I live for nothing else.
Good.
Honestly, that and heroin, those are the only two things that can get me high anymore.
Yeah. And you have to inject the heroin right into your eyeballs. Because every other vein on your body is not working anymore.
I've injected too many likes and comments into the other veins.
Yeah, there you go. There's a comic for you. Just a needle filled with thumbs ups.
That was actually an idea I already had. So back the fuck off. No, but I just couldn't get the angle right, so I just stopped. But I did do a cartoon of somebody in a dark room and getting a hit, like a little heart, and then they're like, that's the shit, implying...
Yeah, I remember that now, actually.
Yeah. But yes, I had the idea of the needle, and it would have looked great. Maybe you can give it a go, since you're better at angles and... what's the word I'm looking for? Honestly, can't fucking remember. Don't worry about it.
Heroin.
This episode is sponsored by heroin, by the way.
Yeah, which means we're actually sponsored by Bayer.
Bayer?
Yeah, they were the medical company who commercialized heroin.
Oh,
they tried to sell it as a children's medication. This is all on Wikipedia. You can search that up.
At what point does the entire world just agree, like, okay, chemical drug companies, we can't do it anymore. We just can't handle this much evil anymore, and we're going to have to take privatization out of your hands. Like, you know what?
it's only when the funds are affected. Truly, I believe, depending on the company, obviously. But during the 1940s, during Nazi Germany, Bayer was like a sister company for the chemical company that produced the gas that was used to kill Jews.
Fuck, Jesus, really?
And
Holy
because
shit.
and I mean, like, everyone already knows that, like, Hugo Boss designed Nazi uniforms.
Yeah.
Volkswagen cars. Fanta was started because they didn't want Coke in Nazi Germany. And
I remember that. Yeah.
yeah. So, like, just companies were not held liable for any of it. It's like they exist outside of it.
Yeah.
It's just business, fellas. It's just business.
Yeah.
That's
probably
crazy.
the most evil line known to humanity, surely.
Not personal. It's just business.
The one thing that you're supposed to kind of have, like, morality is based on humanity. Morality for us for humans is like what is considered evil towards other humans. I guess maybe that's changing to a degree now with more animal rights groups and stuff like that.
Oh, I think people are realizing that, like, let's not just jump straight onto a rant about capitalism, but but yeah, people do get hurt by misuse of currency and business.
Yeah,
all the time.
To keep it lighter, or at least more personal, back to this dopamine from your artwork.
Yeah. Because we're talking about my feelings.
Yeah. And you know, that's content, baby.
I'm still mad about the Holocaust. That's how I feel right now. No, I had no personal stake, technically.
No. We have very little personal stake in most things that we talk about. As I mean, not to say it's easy. Not to say that, like, being a cis white dude in Australia negates all issues. There's obviously some things to deal with, but for most political topics that we talk about, we have no horses in that race.
There's a few brands of cheese we actually have to think about before we buy. Well, you don't eat cheese.
I've dabbled a bit recently.
Oh, okay. Wow, you're just slipping.
Yeah, to a degree. So for those that don't know,
this leads into how are you feeling, Ray?
Well, yeah. I think that does. I think that because I don't want to just say I'm going through a big emotional change right now, because that seems a bit dramatic. But I've been thinking a lot recently about letting myself being more dramatic, and I realized that I turned myself off for a long time. I realized that I had. It's actually with these discussions about female. What am I talking about? Women feeling unsafe in society at the moment, especially in Australia. Well, not just especially in Australia, all around the world, but due to toxic masculinity, and it's just got me talking to more people about feelings and about how men deal with feelings. And I think I did actually shut myself off for a long time, and I was actually feeling. I was thinking about how I react in. This is gonna be like a long path to how I'm feeling, I guess.
Yeah, go for it, man.
But it's been heavy on my mind, so let's talk about it. This is the place we do it.
Yeah,
Coprolalia. That sounds like a Nickelodeon transition from the 90s. So between shows, and Cat Dog just ended, and here comes Arnold.
And then some sort of celebrity has goo pouring on their head or something, and then
What an amazingly simple show is just let's throw some slime onto celebrities, and how much money can we make out of that? And the answer's a shitload. The answer is all the money.
Yeah. If anything is good has come out of white culture, it's definitely that we pour slime on celebrities.
That's the high watermark for white culture. For Western civilization. So I was thinking about this isn't necessarily just to do with toxic masculinity. There's some other things. I think, considering my upbringing was with a lot of very strong women, and I think I learnt a lot from them. Regardless, when I have had fights with my partner, or I've had social interactions that have been quite emotional and not attacking me, but when I have to directly deal with the consequences of my own actions or the consequences of just a situation that I'm part of emotionally, my response is always to just shut down, and I go quiet. And it's not that I'm internalizing emotions. That was a big realization for me. I wasn't internalizing emotions and keeping them quiet and not letting them out. I actually had trained myself to not feel anything. I've actually had moments when I'm being yelled at, and the person has asked me, like, how do you feel? Like, what was your reaction to this? And like, I actually don't feel anything. I don't have an emotional response. I'm only thinking logically in a way at that point. Even more so than when I'm not being yelled at. When I have time to think about it, I have a bit more of an emotional response. But in the heat of the moment, it's gone. It's all out the window. And that's pretty intense. That's pretty scary, I think.
Well, depends on if you weren't actually feeling something, like, you don't have to fake it. But if you were, and you were deliberately denying yourself that expression, then it can manifest in unhealthy ways.
I think I was more emotional when I was younger. I guess that's how teenagers work anyway, though. However, I was also thinking with my art as well. My art used to be a lot more emotional based, and there's still a lot of it in there.
Oh, do you think there's like a progressing trend towards just complete repression of your emotion?
I think it's like, the art is based purely on observation and parody of life, which has its own place, and it has a very important place, and it's my main go-to when it comes to what I want to talk about, what I want to put into my art. I would say my favorite art piece at the moment is Pure Comedy, the album by Father John Misty, which is a very observational album. It's very much just critiquing the world around him. However, there are a few moments on the album where he just kind of opens up the floodgates, and it's all about him, how he emotionally feels. The point is that, I guess just shut down for a long time parts of my head, I think, and I'm trying to get back into that. I'm trying to let myself just give myself some space to breathe and try and let some emotion back into my life. That's how I'm feeling.
Well, what's the process there then? Do you think you'll allow more emotion to inform your decisions?
I like being able to control. I like having control over my actions, and emotions can get in the way of that sometimes. I think I just need.
If we let anger sort of dictate, anger can be a momentary madness, and if we allow it to be the sole decider in our actions, we can do some outrageous things.
Yeah. I've definitely had some anger issues in the past, which I think I learned from my father.
That could be a result of suppression of emotion.
Yeah, like a frustration of just your own inability to respond to the world, or perhaps your lack of control. Maybe depends for everybody, I guess. But I think that was mine. I think mine was like a lack of a feeling of helplessness would push me to anger as a response.
Yeah, right.
But everyone has their own different reasons. Anyway, where'd you come for? Hope you didn't come here for a lighthearted podcast.
This is the we're the first two men to discuss our emotions. So that means the world is progressing.
I read an article actually about a psychiatrist who has seen a huge influx of men opening up about actually apologizing. I think he was a man as well, so it was a male psychiatrist and other men coming to him, and he had already been treating these individuals, but he had said a larger amount of them were now opening up about how they realized they may have internalized things like that, like what I was just talking about, and also abused women in ways that they didn't realize until recently, and now they were kind of taking ownership of their actions, but not in a way that like they realized they were doing it at the time and they're just like now feeling really guilty about it. They were like, oh shit, now I can actually see it from the other side. And the psychologist said like there has been a bigger influx, at least just within his own circle of men analyzing
taking
themselves.
Responsibility.
Yeah,
I think that's good.
Really good. It's fantastic news.
I try and do it myself. There's a lot of evidence to support that men shouldn't go around apologizing for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
By that I just mean there's a lot of people who perpetuate that idea. However, because it's not seen as a very like dominant masculine thing to go around relinquishing power, because that's sort of what an apology does. It's
I see. Yeah.
It's not a very strong male thing to do, to go around and say you were right and I was wrong.
Yeah.
So it can be seen as like a weakness in masculinity to be submissive like that.
Yeah.
But if we no longer use those measuring tools, we no longer measure our masculinity by the dominance we have on the people around us. Apologies are simple and they're meaningful.
It's a step closer towards actually being strong. Like, if I think about the weakest people I've seen ever, it's it's big macho men in bars or whatever other situation you would find those kind of people just using intimidation and violence. Not even like they did anything to me, but just this air about them that just suggests that like they are there to fuck everybody up, to fight people, to do whatever they want, to do whatever. That's the image of fragility in my head. Like,
right. Well, I've met a few people who are actually quite like skinny, but intelligence is their deal, and they see nothing wrong in using the mental gymnastics they can use to just like subversively dominate people around them. Like so to use social credit and social status to dominate people around them without having to exert themselves physically at all. They're both examples of fragility, though, in my mind.
Yeah, I think that's a great example for now, because it's easier to do it online, and that's the most common tactic. Is just like asserting, like perhaps they'll use a fact or a single fact that they've got, or a single quote or something like that. Especially when you see arguments about philosophy, and they just attack one another based on how many books they've read, essentially, which is a funny way of like comparing dicks in a way. It's the same kind of concept. It's like just measuring each other's character rather than actually trying to have discussions with each other or talk about how they feel or what the actual topic is. But yeah,
I have a couple questions here. Since we're both paralyzed from the neck down.
I can't believe I forgot that. It seems like something I'd notice. Apparently I don't use the rest of my body as much as I'd like.
No, once you're sitting in a chair, like you could take it or leave it, really.
Depends on what's on my computer.
If this was to last forever, what would you miss doing the most?
Besides masturbating. I'm going to take that off the cards.
No, you can use that. What is the second most thing you would miss the most?
That's absolutely not the first thing I'd miss anyway.
But it is the first thing that came to your mind, so it's technically the first thing you missed.
True, sure. Fuck, I just poked myself in the eye. That wouldn't be an issue.
Question.
No, I think it's a good question, but I think maybe it's an obvious answer for us if we're both so committed to producing content of any kind. So yeah, for me it would just be losing the ability of my arms and hands would be a goddamn nightmare.
Yeah, and that seems like a really that seems like the answer. What would you miss if you had no arms or legs? What would you miss the most? Probably my arms and legs. I can understand that answer. Let's move on to. Do you reckon you could find happiness stuck in this state for the rest of your existence?
Yes. It would just be so fucking impossibly hard.
The follow up to that is, what conditions would you require in order to live this way happily?
I guess a platform. I guess like what would keep me going, and anybody going, I would say, is a connection to humanity, and that would probably be the hardest part. And not something I can speak on because I'm extremely able, as well as all my other benefits in life. But it would probably be a lot easier to feel sealed off from the world if you lost those abilities. Simple.
Well, absolutely. So you'd need a carer of some sort. First of all,
overall, I'd want something like, well, this podcast, but a way to connect to people, a way to talk to people, and continue to just communicate, to be surrounded by people as much as possible. I think there may be happiness in that.
I reckon. So you have a YouTube or a Twitter account, and you've got the whole Stephen Hawking deal where you can use your eyes to type or something, or to talk or whatever. Oh no, you can just talk.
If I can talk, then that's great.
You can probably use text to speech, or speech to text, whatever, for like Twitter, and then you could just you could maintain a YouTube channel just based on the content you consume. But obviously, if you wanted to attend festivals, if you wanted to attend conventions and things like that, you'd need to be wheeled around in some way by someone.
Hopefully, within our lifetime, we may just have little tiny robots that can do all this kind of shit for us. In the current state of affairs...
In fact, would you just go for a mech suit?
Oh, dude, if that was an option, fucking...
Well, yeah.
Even now, cut this shit off. I'm done with... no, I've known for a very long time. There's actually a word for it, kind of what it is. But it's where there's a jealousy of prosthetic limbs.
Is it a human traitor? Is it a nature traitor?
No, but probably. I mean, I would be the first to drop my humanity, I guess.
Biological traitor?
I would probably... it's one of those things I'd probably... Once I actually was in the situation, I'd realize how fucking nightmarish it is. Especially from a social standpoint, you'd be looked at totally differently.
I feel like Deus Ex Mankind Divided explores that really well. In fact, Human Revolution as well,
However... I'm 100% down. Ever since, I think, seeing Star Wars Episode 2, I've always known that, like, fucking sign me up for a robot arm whenever I get the goddamn chance. One that I can tinker with and, like, add bits to it. Fuck yeah, get me going. Also, just, like, can I take my... let's take it to the logical conclusion. If you can take your head and stick that on an entire robot body. Like, if I can have a robot digestive system that can have parts replaced, then fucking hell yeah, boy. Because already I've done too much damage to this one via alcohol. I'm happy to get rid of some parts.
So, do you reckon mechanical liver should be the first step?
For me, or for humanity? Humanity, let's continue on the limbs. Clearly the most important part.
Yeah.
Maybe
life would be worth living without alcohol if the body was a bit more capable and could fly.
Maybe, yeah. But now that I say that, I think probably not robot, but like bionic organs is probably the first and most important step. But both of those fields are moving forward in leaps and bounds, all considered. I think we talked about this in a previous episode about robot arms.
I think we also talked about sex robots.
Yeah, we did. We had a whole episode on sex robots.
Such a good episode, actually. I have listened back to that. It was pretty good.
Probably our best. I mean, the content, just the topic alone, scores at 100 points to Gryffindor.
Yeah. My next question actually is, what Harry Potter house do you think we'd be in?
I don't know, man. I
So
don't. I
you-
couldn't give two shits about Harry Potter.
You've already said Gryffindor, so
Gryffindor doesn't
I
make
can
any sense
see-
to me. Maybe I'm egotistical enough for Gryffindor. I don't know.
those dinosaurs are real fucking freaky.
At least we're small enough so they're not really hassling us too much at the moment.
Yeah, we're hidden within the skull.
If it's a saber-toothed tiger skull, we can narrow that down to a pretty good time period. When were those around dinosaurs? Were those
Between
close?
52 million and 11,000 years ago.
Cool. Pretty narrow window.
Yeah, it's a really short window of time.
Yeah, man. You got any more bionic questions?
Nah, I don't know anything about bionics.
I only know what I look at on YouTube.
Have you seen the videos of people seeing for the first time or whatever?
Yeah.
Oh, what an emotional, I was gonna say draw. Like, what people who wanna feel something can just go search up like a young person using a bionic ear for the first time and hearing their mother's voice or whatever.
Yeah.
The tears, everyone's crying, everyone in the room just starts crying. It's pretty ridiculous. Like, are we that? There's some intrinsic part of us that does actually believe everything is beautiful, I think.
I realize
Or that, like, it's incredibly meaningful to experience anything at all. The only thing that is meaning. I don't know. Just spitballing.
it's those kind of videos both make me the most hopeful for humanity and also the most depressed for humanity. It's like when you see there's a guy, I can't remember where he is, but he's in a what would you call it? I don't want to say third world country, but I guess it technically is. Whatever it was. Disadvantaged area, nonetheless.
So somewhere in America?
Like most of America, I guess, to a degree.
Yeah.
Anyway, where it was somewhere around the world, but this guy was producing, he produced a way to create new lenses for people to restore their sight, because the first thing that goes is actually the most easily treatable, apparently. He just had to basically create a new 3D printed lens, I think it was.
Oh my gosh.
Can't remember how it worked, but he got the cost down to like $12. And he would they were installing, like, it was something like, I don't want to misquote a number. It was a lot a day. Like, they just worked around the clock. It was just him and a team of doctors, and they would just, like, people would come in, and it was only like a 10-minute operation. 10 minutes to just take this lens, stick it in your eye, and you can see. I don't think it's like you don't have 20/20, but you can see. You can actually move around for yourself. You can do things for yourself, and to seeing the smile on these people's faces, like. So part of me is like, that's the best thing ever. Like, this guy has just done this for all these people, and it's such an amazing, incredible thing. And then the other part of me goes, how fucking long did it take us to do that? God fucking damn it! And why is it this guy? Why is it just one dude? Like, why isn't the privileged Western world stepping up and saying, hey, let's give these out for $12. I think we can fucking cover costs. Hey, can we do without one jet? Yeah, cool. Eyes for the world. That's insanity. Pure insanity. If you want to fix a fucking country, like, sort that kind of shit out, right?
I saw a meme about this guy called George Soros. Mm-hmm. And like, he has been the target of so many conspiracy theories from right-wing leaning people.
Yep.
And it's because he donated $12 billion to philanthropic causes. Mm-hmm. And so suddenly it was like, oh, he's no longer a part of us. Like, he's no longer a part of the conservative.
Okay.
Because he's almost like a class traitor in some ways. Like no, you earn that money, you keep it. You don't just destroy the system by giving it back to others. And so, like, Fox News went on a bunch of different rants, like, actually feeding into some of these conspiracies that are
seriously.
He's colluding with other countries and whatever. And the meme was actually saying that George Soros, like, owns the internet, and it was like trying to say that was like a deep level conspiracy. It's
Sure.
like, well, okay, so you break the mold a little bit, break the pattern of being money grubbing just for
Yeah.
a moment, and people are starting to question your character.
That's insane. What else are you supposed to fucking do with all the money in the world except for like, well, sure, it shouldn't be down to one guy, but I guess I'm going to use this system that that has benefited me with all this wealth. I'm going to pour that back in. That's the dream, isn't it? To have so much fucking money. You go, if I see something wrong in the world, I'm just going to do my best to fix it because I've got the tool, the one tool that humanity kind of has at the moment that can actually do something is just pour funds into shit. That's what does it. Which is sad, but nonetheless, that's a system that is in place that you can kind of exploit to make the world better. Anyway, fucking commie pig.
There's a dinosaur coming this way, and it's sort of freaking me out a little bit.
That's a bit unsettling. It looks like he's bloody interested in that little keyboard of ours there.
He's got good rhythm for a dinosaur, I'll be honest.
I've watched a lot of Walking with Dinosaurs years ago, and they never mentioned the rhythmical skills of the prehistoric the dinosaur. Though you seem quite musical there. I also see that you've got a bit of an injured hand there.
Yep, that's right.
How'd that happen?
So about a year, actually exactly a year ago, I was practicing a lot of saxophone, and it was about 8 hours a day, and after about 2 weeks of doing that, I found I would go to sleep and there'd be like a lot of pain in my wrist and sort of a bit of numbness. And I've had that for about a year. I've been struggling to try and make it better, which has been extremely difficult.
Well then, can I kind of ask straight up, how'd you find that emotionally at the start? If you were practicing that much, if you're treating it, if you were that invested into music and into benefit into improving your craft, and then having that kind of that limitation come out of nowhere.
Yeah, it wasn't a huge problem emotionally until about 3 months later, which is when I had to actually stop completely. And I had to stop for a few months.
That's heavy.
Yeah, I stopped playing for about 2.5 months, like completely, and then there was about a month where I was sort of like trying to play but basically not playing. It wasn't. Yeah, the main problem was emotionally was when it started to hurt doing like other things that weren't playing.
Yeah,
and
right.
I felt like I couldn't really do anything productive because like anything using that hand would just make it worse.
Yeah.
And then it started to feel like it would never get better.
Yeah, that's rough. That like I know that arthritis can set in, and some people just like would not get back from arthritis too.
Mhm.
So I'm sort of afraid of arthritis.
Yeah. I've
But how did what's his name? The guy with 2 fingers missing.
Django.
No, so Django Reinhardt's fiddle player or whatever.
Stefan Grappelli.
Yeah, how did he not get such bad arthritis that he had to stop playing at like 90 or whatever?
some people just get through it, don't they? Like some people just don't get injured by repetitive strain as often. Sometimes it is the luck of the draw, I think.
I think that's a very large factor. Like, obviously, like, all my teachers and stuff in the past have always talked about technique and, you know, things you can do to prevent it, which, you know, plays a role. Obviously, if you're using energy, like more energy than you need to, or you're using it in the wrong way or the wrong place, you're going to increase the chances of hurting yourself. But I think it's more than that. It's like certain people are susceptible to these kind of injuries. You know, like...
So it's a genetic weakness.
I think sometimes yes. It's also just like, I don't know, something about the way that you do everything, or that like if you particularly like you lead with your like preferred hand like a lot, and don't do anything like strenuous with the other hand, like 'cause it's apparently often in the hand that is not your leading hand.
Yeah.
Whoa.
So it's like because it's the weaker hand, it doesn't do as much.
Yeah.
And then if you're using it for something like playing the saxophone, it's like the exact same thing on both hands. Like it's the same strain.
Yeah.
The left hand just is going to have a lower threshold before you'll have to stop.
You know Wolfpack, don't you?
Yeah.
There's like a couple of like off bands that are like sort of spin-offs. Using similar members. One of them's called the Fearless Flyers, and the three guitar playing members, they actually use guitar stands. These stands that hold the guitars for them. They just sort of stand in like behind it.
Yep.
Would you ever consider that like a saxophone stand?
I would, but I don't think it's really to do with holding saxophone. It is for some people, but like
right.
I've not been playing the saxophone for quite a while, and it hurts doing like just a lot of other things that don't require like actually holding something heavy like saxophone. Like playing clarinet and playing flute seem to hurt it just as bad.
Right.
Or just like gaming. Flares it up really bad, or typing, like things that are not load bearing. But there's definitely with some people it's like a real lower back issue, or even if like the pain is rarely felt in the place that it's actually being caused by.
Yeah.
Right. That makes it a lot harder to actually figure out what the issue is, what the problem is.
Well, that's the trouble with it. It's like, I think compared to, I don't know, if you broke your leg or you fractured your collarbone or dislocated your shoulder, like, the pain level of that would be like a million times worse. It's not that it's like a really like painful, hard to bear thing. It's just like it's an injury that won't go away. It doesn't heal in the normal way that injuries do.
Yeah.
And you're just scratching your head for a long time trying to figure out like what's causing it.
Yeah,
how to make it better.
I get migraines, and it's the same thing. Just like what in my life do I change?
Yeah.
And I arrive at nothing, and doctors arrive at nothing too. So it's a bit frustrating.
It's a lot more complexity of the head. There's so many more variables to take into account to figure out what's actually going on.
Yeah, and like just banging my head against a wall offers like this slight bit of relief.
I hope that. Wait, did you do this before as well?
No, I'm just fucking around.
I've been banging my head against brick walls for years. I get these chronic migraines. Just can't figure it out.
Doctors are still at a loss.
It was I was a stuntman on Jackass. They used to put a helmet on me and just drop me off cranes. Yeah.
This is, kind of related, but it just reminded me. I saw because you always hear stories of football players in America who just get concussions all the fucking time, and they just lose their minds by the end of it. I actually saw some X-rays of the difference between the brain of a football player versus the brain of a regular person, and
is it the size of a tiny little pea?
It's not quite a pea, but it's significantly like it's squished. Like it looks really battered up. Like big dark areas of bruising and shit, and you can only fucking imagine what kind of effects that would have on a person.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
But then you ask, do you just live with it in terms of like, if that's truly what you want to do you just put up with that risk, or do you put up with that cost on your life? I mean, I would not. I wouldn't want to lose my head. I wouldn't want to lose my brain. People who do extreme sports, and there's constantly the chance you're going to die. You just take that as part of it.
Well, they enjoy that factor of it, I think. It brings up like that discussion of the fact we're going to die eventually anyway. But I would say that like if you haven't yet reached your sort of healthiest point, I don't know when the body stops growing and it's like at its peak.
Isn't it around 27 or something?
Yeah, right. Well, so
I've
if
read
we're before that point, we don't want to be destroying ourselves. However, if we're like in our mid to late 50s, like if you want to have a self-destructive habit, maybe like it's not worth denying yourself that thing.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it's always an answer of balance. But there is something like part of me is always wary, and I think it's maybe, I don't know why it is. Maybe it's because I grew up seeing people drinking a lot, and a lot of my heroes have been wild drunks. Not that
and smokers too. So you've actually got that on
yeah.
them. You don't smoke and destroy everything else.
Yeah. But like people who take really good care of themselves, people who just like their entire life is to be well, is to do yoga, eat healthy, don't drink, don't do anything, maybe go and pray to Jesus, whatever you want to do. And for me, always looking at it like that just seems like a waste of a life in a way. Maybe it's their own form of drug, maybe healthiness is their own form of
Have you ever tried it?
nah.
You'd probably feel pretty good if you did that.
I just like wine way too fucking much.
Yeah, and I understand why. Like it's. No, I don't know where I was going with that. If you want to quit drinking, though, right, you totally can.
I've done it before, not quit, but like felt it as a real issue at the time and just cut it down to almost completely nothing.
I find quitting is not the right way to approach it.
Yeah,
I think like the whole cold turkey idea is actually it's just not the best way to do anything.
yeah. I don't think it's mentally. I think pushing towards self-control of knowing your limits and taking control of that and finding that balance, and I feel that would be mentally more beneficial to you. I think that teaches something a deeper strength than just cutting it out, because cutting it out's a lot easier than dancing in the middle a bit, you know.
Yeah.
And denying yourself any experience in life, maybe not good. I don't know. That's coming from someone who just does the same shit almost every fucking day and week and doesn't really get out, doesn't go traveling or anything. So I guess I can't really speak, but nonetheless.
So this is a question for the dinosaur.
Yep.
Have you adapted your practice to be more sustainable, like for your sort of, is it wrist?
It's sort of like whole from the left elbow downwards. It's all
right
fucked.
And so you're saying it's not like healable. So to.
Oh, I think it is. It's something that it's not healable. It's just about finding a way to solve whatever's causing it. Because it's. I mean, maybe 8 hours a day is beyond the limit of my body,
right?
But I don't play anywhere near that much now. I don't practice at all. Even I do gigs on the weekend. Like 2 to 5 gigs, usually about 2 hours each. So like that's a really reasonable amount of playing to be done in a week. Like it shouldn't be that big of a strain on your body.
Right.
It's like I think it's just because I haven't figured out what's causing it really, or figured out a way to. Yeah, because it's just the muscles are weak, but they just won't get stronger.
Yeah.
Well, would you try like gymming or something to increase the muscle, the amount of muscle or something like that?
I've sort of started trying to work out a little bit. I don't want to go to doing weights or anything just yet.
Yeah.
I just want to try and get like cardio and like my shoulder strength, like just doing push-ups, like absolutely kills my shoulders. Like sort of get that stuff a bit stronger first. And I've tried to do little gentle weights in the past. Was one of my physios told me to do that. but I found it made it worse because they're sort of already worked out to their limit all the time, which is the problem.
Right.
So
Yeah,
it's like lifting what, like there's no real there's no endurance left to fit in any weightlifting or anything.
Yeah. It's also weightlifting's like a whole thing. You actually need to become a part of this like subculture in order to know how to do it, and it's nuts. You can't just like show up to a gym and then go, yeah, put on the 50 kilograms, please.
Yeah. I know you could. Yeah, weights are the easiest ones to hurt yourself. Like you really can fuck yourself up.
But man,
not having good form or not having a spotter, like all kinds of things. Just
I've got a question then for in terms of your ability as a musician. Like, do you how do you think you're improving now? And perhaps this is, I don't know if this is more not like personal, but like if this is a worry of yours, because going from 8 hours of practice to drastically less and to focusing primarily just on gigs, how do you find yourself improving, and how do you find you've changed in terms of your attitude towards it, as your goals, especially as a musician?
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't really have any goals at the moment. Except for just figuring out how to play without pain. Well, I mean, I've got a goal. I mean,
does that mean you could adopt like a slower style or like a minimalist? Would you
really?
Yeah.
I mean, it might help a little bit, but I find playing long notes or just holding my hand in a playing position will still make it sore. So
right.
I don't think it was an issue in my case of technique or what I'm actually doing with my hand.
Yeah.
But it can be for some people. But it's hard to get anybody's opinion about it because it is so different for everybody who suffers from it. But going back to what you said, asked about how I've improved. I feel like I'm actually a lot better now than I was a year ago, even though I can't practice. Because, I mean, that was off the back of I was playing 8 hours a day when I hurt myself, but before that I was still practicing like about 6 for 3 years, during uni. So, and, doing less gigs than I am doing now, and just practicing a lot. And music courses can be pretty negative environment, so it's actually been really good in a lot of ways to just do the complete opposite of everything I did when I was in uni. And it's made my ears a lot better. Like I can, because I can't ever practice anything, so I just have to know how a song goes, having never actually been able to sit down and play it.
Yeah, right.
Interesting.
Like I just have to hear the melody in my head and know be able to sing it, and then just play it first time.
That's cool. That's an interesting a new technique, perhaps not a technique, but a new skill set that you can develop.
Yeah, I mean, I already would do that kind of thing a lot anyway, because I learnt by ear primarily, but it's definitely gotten stronger just by not being able to practice anything.
Yeah. Just to one thing I found. Now this is very different and also very short a time period, but starting my cartoons and I did them every single day on my main account and plus some other things for a solid year and a little bit. And I found now that I've drastically pulled that back down to only 3 times a week, that the quality of the cartoons has changed because my mindset is so much more just relaxed, and so I'm looking much more emotionally into my cartoons rather than once I was pushing it every single day, working on both my technical skills and trying to think of an actual idea. I thought much more logically, but much more almost like a colder approach to the activity.
Yeah,
and found that it was more just a repetitive practice rather than an actual creative output of mine. It was less emotionally driven.
I think that's there's nothing wrong with that, really. I think you just go in cycles. I remember one of the teachers at Monash when I was there saying how like you go through times as a player like where you've got no gigs and you just practice your ass off, and then like like after a couple of months you're like, oh my god, I just want to do more gigs, and then you do heaps of gigs, and you forget all the stuff you're practicing, like in a good way, as in like just stop worrying about it. And then after a couple of months you're really busy and it's like, oh, I just want a break so I can work on some new things, and it's just like kind of comes in cycles. I guess like mine was just forced on me.
I guess the main thing is at least for myself, and I assume for a lot of other people, it's like once you get into that pattern of practicing that much or putting out that much content, whatever you want to, whatever you're doing, you can very easily guilt yourself when you stop doing it, or you can feel like you feel like that's kind of the only way, because that's the only way you know how to do it at the time. But there's so many different ways of doing it, obviously. And people often this is again a bit different if we're talking about more about technical skill sets versus actual creative output in terms of doesn't matter you know what I'm talking about. People often respond much better to a more relaxed and more honest approach, I would say, to it, and you can kind of see that in I'm rambling too much to the point where I'm not sure what I'm talking about.
I can sort of gather what you're talking about.
Clear it up for me, Giles.
Are you sort of saying that that sort of engaging with creating stuff when it's coming through you can be a more rewarding thing than the mechanical approach?
Yeah, and it's about finding that balance.
Constantly doing it.
Yeah, like people who focus entirely on technical side of things often fall short in terms of how well they connect to people through their art, I would say.
Right, yeah.
Maybe a really good example is singer-songwriters, because someone like Bob Dylan, who couldn't sing, play guitar, or play the harmonica for shit, connected with more people, potentially, than any singer-songwriter besides him. So... I've kind of thought a lot about this, because I feel like that's something people say, like I hear people say that a lot, is that like people who focus too much on technique don't like just fail to speak to people. But I think I kind of find that there's just as many examples of the opposite. Like John Coltrane as opposed to, say, Miles Davis, like very, very opposite players. Like Miles Davis kind of being the cool, sort of conceptual, a lot more minimal, like kind of guy. I mean, he's probably more popular. But then, and Coltrane being the opposite of the absolutely obsessive, technical kind of like just outrageous
wizardry.
Sorry?
Wizardry.
I said wizardry.
But I don't know. I think there's a certain kind of intensity and like that comes out of like somebody devoting themselves so completely.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
I think like people. I don't think when you reach that level, I don't think anyone can hear that and not hear the art in it. I think it's more like maybe like younger players who aren't established yet, who just have a bunch of licks or something, like don't really have any substance. But at the end of the day, they're not even technically as like don't have the same technical facility as like somebody like that anyway. Who has a lot of emotion when they play.
Perhaps I'm
also.
Go.
Also, I have friends who actually do love being able to listen to the technicality of it. I have a music theory friend who he's on both sides of that fence. He really likes things that are simple and you can tell that it's just like flowing out of them. But he also likes compositions that have been like painstakingly composed. He's
It's like just being able to dive into the details of I'm trying to think of something of a good example. One of the reasons why I like role-playing games so much and stuff like that versus a first-person shooter is obviously very different genres, but is the intricate, tiny little details that were put into those kind of worlds that you can immerse yourself in. And you can kind of get that same thing with meticulously composed music. Something that I actually find with Flying Lotus's stuff is that there's so much little intricate bits going on. Or actually, a better example at the moment is someone like Kendrick Lamar versus a lot of other rappers at this time. Is he's got those beats, he's got the hooks, he's got everything there to grab you, but there's so much detail in there musically, also because of the plays he's got with him, including the great Kamasi Washington and Thundercat. Anyway, I'm kind of jumping around a bit in terms of topics, but all somewhat connected.
Yeah,
that's fine.
Yeah, I think there's not really any one way to do it. I think people love to say that technical wizards are boring. I don't think a lot of Australians say that. They love to cut down people who play intellectual music.
We love the average Joe. We love the working class guys.
Yeah, which is, it's an endearing kind of quality of Australians, but it's also very self-deprecating,
For sure.
And I was I can't remember who was some Australian artist that was just sort of like absolute bagging out like some Australian composers or something. And I was like, you're an Australian composer. What do you want? What is your goal in music? You just want to be shouted down and just cut down because you're Australian and you don't have that history that America has or something, or Europe. It's well, you're just hurting yourself.
Just the same as Americans are overly confident definitely to a fault. However, I find the opposite with Australians, as you're saying, is we're self-deprecating to a fault, where it's no longer endearing, it's no longer cute. It's just, for the most part, you're just hurting your own confidence into follow through with your ideas. And
another thing, I've heard a lot, being a jazz musician. I mean, now that I'm old, and all my friends are jazz musicians, so I don't hear this so much. But just from people around where we grew up, people would always say things, drop in little comments like how jazz musicians are wankers, or jazz music is wanky, or pretentious. And it's I don't really know where that really comes from. I mean,
it could be from the class association.
It's funny because traditionally jazz is made by very, very much lower class people.
yeah.
Right. No. Yeah. That's right.
I mean, I think it is thought of now as a bit fancier. There's a hip hop has taken in terms of music of class, it has taken the place of jazz. It's just the same sort of socioeconomic groups just playing, becoming hip hop artists rather than jazz artists. Where it was in the 1920s and 40s or something, it'd be the same kind of people like Kendrick Lamar were becoming the Charlie Parkers instead of Kendrick Lamar.
I wonder if it's. I wonder if age of the listeners is a big part of it. This is totally off the cuff. I have no idea what I'm talking about. But to think of because when I think of who likes the blues now, it's old guys. I can only picture old guys listening to the blues. Obviously, that's not true. But that's kind of how people picture it. And same with jazz. They picture old guys listening to it in a dusty bar, drinking nice scotch. And that's obviously not really the case, but that's the image they have in their heads. And right now, hip-hop is a young man's game. I keep saying the word man. Anybody can do it. that's not the discussion.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's anything really inherently insidious about that. It's just a fact of life that people listen to music they grew up with. Yeah. And and younger people, and jazz is never going to be as popular as it was again, and I don't really care. That's just a fact of life. Hip hop's going to die as well. Yeah. And something else will take its place. Yeah. It's more just that
K-pop.
It'll just be trap snares.
Just
bear traps.
Trap snares. and auto-tune, which is kind of
It's
what
all
it
I
is
can
now.
hear if I'm on the bus and someone has their headphones in. All I can hear is the goddamn
Yeah, and we've hit peak trap, and it's a fucking nightmare.
peak trap.
Yeah. That's Anthony Fantano's quote. I'm not claiming that.
Good. So it's all in the downward decline.
I fucking hope so. I'm totally over it. I mean, that's any genre, that's any musical movement. Like it has to hit that peak where everything sounds like it, and then it'll die because people just get sick of it. I'm hoping that we hit. I'm hoping in terms of popular music, we hit a bit of a grungy, not grungy in terms of the musical style, but rather the sound. Like underproduced music could come back again, because at the moment everything is so highly produced, especially with the trap sound. However, I am hearing that more in the. This is, I don't know why I'm diving so heavily into hip hop topic. Here we go, but nonetheless,
Kanye Star Wars podcast. Slowly making your way back to talking about Kanye.
Honestly, don't know if we've recorded a podcast where we haven't mentioned Kanye at some point.
Well, we just mentioned him.
There we go. Kanye. Welcome back to Kanye's. Kanye's. I can't think of the K word. Doesn't matter. Point is, with sound.
Corner.
Kanye's corner.
Kenya.
With a K.
Kenya.
It's like almost like Kanye.
Yeah, but it also
It's a
sounds,
country.
Yeah, I know. Here's zero.
As you were.
With SoundCloud rappers who are just producing in their bedroom, and they're actually going for a more distorted sound. In fact, there's actually a pretty heavy movement of it's not nu metal, but man, you can hear it. You can hear that singing style and that grunginess of nu metal was also pretty produced, but still that kind of sound, that kind of punky kind of attitude is creeping into SoundCloud rap, which is then now creeping into the mainstream. So it's still trap based, unfortunately, so we're still at peak trap, and that's still going to keep going for a little while. However,
I honestly can't think of a worse combination of things.
nu metal and trap.
New metal and trap music, and
It makes sense though, doesn't it? They're almost the same genre, and just in different.
well, yeah, hip hop became a bit of a cringe genre for like a little while. Like
Oh, it had
SoundCloud was producing cringe rappers.
Yeah.
Like
We had-
what's the guy? What's the guy who he basically popularized like purple drink or whatever it is, whatever the fuck it's called, the purple drink that they have.
I have no idea.
Whatever. All right.
Just put.
It's just like codeine. It's just codeine and grape soda or something.
Okay. Cool. Put Lil in front of anything, you got yourself a new SoundCloud rapper.
It was a little, it was a little something.
Lil Big Pen. Whatever. That's all I got. All right. Anything else, guys? We're hitting up that 60-minute mark.
Yeah, we've actually restored motor function to our body.
Yeah, I forgot that I needed motor function, so I just didn't even notice. But now I've got it. Now we can get back to our own time. Good bit. Thank you, Dinosaur, for hanging out
Thank you, Dinosaur.
and chatting about jazz.
Good to be here.
There's been bloody Coprolalia. It's been a podcast by anybody's loosest definition of the term.
Coprolalia.
Coprolalia.
What does it mean?
Shit talking in some other language. What is it, Charles?
It's Latin. Copro means shit, and lalia means speech in Latin.
Shit speech.
Wow.
Bad speech.
Did you make that compound word yourself?
No.
No, it already existed, but it's being used medically for the type of Tourette's where people shout out obscenity.
Shit talking. Is that
It's
this
called
podcast?
it's called coprolalia.
That's
when you have
podcast.
Tourette's and you shout out swear words.
Cool. I hope we're not being insensitive. But it's not the
No,
first
well,
time on
I've
this
thought about
podcast.
that, and I
And you just decide no.
no, I've thought about it, so I've considered it, and I think that's considerate of me.
Well, in the literal sense of
That's,
considering something.
I'm on your side, but that's like the whitest thing you can say.
No. So I think movies like the Juice Bigelow movies where they actually have characters who just shout.
Yeah.
Like, because it's actually a very small percentage of people with Tourette's, so like, it's a very small amount of the population.
They could actually come after us.
And we're not shitting all over it,
No.
like a movie that's making a gimmick out of it is.
Yeah, we're just using the word.
Yeah, I'm using the literal definition of the word.
This has been.
We're not making fun of people with Tourette's.
No.
I'm glad I asked.
Tourette's is a terrifying condition, by the way.
Yeah. Shout out to.
Tourette's.
This has been
Shout out
Coprolalia.
because of Tourette's. Okay, that's
Good end joke. Good end joke.
no, it's not. Do people listen to this?
Like six people.